let's war game a single scenario. Brandon, I want you to give us the highlights of what the judge has done to your case. Give us like a bullet point list, 5 or 6 items of what the judge has done to you at the moment. And then when we have that, Bob, I want to walk through the process of how you get a case like that started, what you have to bring, and where you have to go with it. So Brandon, go.
Yeah. So when I first went in to court, it was always about, okay, what can you do better, for your kids, this and that. And I thought at first, like the hearing referees, I mean, when you go into the front of the court, you can have these hearings in a McDonald's parking lot. Mm-hmm. They're not judges. They're nobody. So, but they make it seem like they are. Yeah. So they're like, well, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. Okay.
That's great, right?
Yep. They have no legal authority.
Right.
Yeah.
And it got to the point, we went to court, we went back, and they said, well, you're going to go and see the judge, because the attorney I had at the time, he wouldn't assert my rights, and he wouldn't assert, but you're like Bob said, we talked, and you're really wasting your time when you're trying. Go ahead.
That's malfeasance.
Right.
Stand by. Hang on. I don't want to step on your bullet points, but I battled with those magistrates, and usually they only sided with my ex-wife.
Sure.
And I appealed every single time. I literally went in there, and they're like, she's trying to talk to me, and I'm like, I paid to see the judge, not talk to you.
Right.
And those guys get their paychecks directly out of Title 4D. That's where the money comes from.
Yeah. So it's like, let's call it for what it is. Like, everyone's like, oh, did you pay your child support? You didn't pay your child support. No, that's a marketing thing, really. I mean, did you pay your Title 4D? Well, that doesn't sound appealing, So it's kind of like, okay, fine. But we get into court, this and that. My wife was with me, and the judge was just like, well, they've, the front of the courts, they've done a lot of research on this. They know exactly what they're doing. Blah,
no,
blah,
they
blah.
haven't. Most of them are morons.
Right.
What's your kid's name?
And, but they don't even know your kids' names. They just don't. No. So, he goes, well, basically they're going to, instead of they tried to get this thing to go to the VA with an IWO. They sent it, and the VA said, go pound sand.
First of all, what is that acronym?
Income withholding order.
What was that again?
Income withholding order.
Okay.
So they sent it over to the VA. The VA said, no, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. And the judge goes, you're right, Mr. Trudell. We can't do that to you. We can't garnish it. We can't, but I'm going to make you pay it anyway. So that's what's happened. Yes. That's what's happening, and I talked to Bob about this extensively. That's what's happening to a lot of veterans, and now the VA is allowing this. They're allowing this. Wow. But most of these judges are putting end-around orders and going, we can't get to it, but we're going to make you fucking pay it anyway. And then put you in jail if you don't pay it for contempt. Which it's mind blowing to me. I mean, that's even void. So these void orders, contempt, I mean, based on a void order, is void.
Correct.
So that's really what happened to me. So now my CRSC is being garnished at half, 50%. My Social Security is being garnished at 50%. And then they want $714 more of my VA because they took it all collectively and bunched it all up. And that's what they're doing to veterans. But they're putting end-around orders, and they're making you pay it out of pocket. But Bob, I can see him. I can see him shaking his head.
I see him taking notes and typing. I can see Don doing the same thing over there.
Well, that's what happened to me. And now I'm getting threats in the mail.
You showed me that.
It's Title 4D is so hard up. They're going to take my fishing license, gentlemen.
What does that accomplish? What exactly does that accomplish?
I don't know.
It's just harassment.
Guys,
It is
yeah,
just harassment.
astronomically disturbing. I've never seen anything more absurd. Fishing license, we're going to suspend your driver's license. We're going to take, your passport. We're going to intercept your federal income tax.
Okay.
I don't pay federal income tax.
Get it. They're nailing you to the wall there. Something just dawned on me. One of the things I didn't mention, Bob and Don, is I'm a paralegal by trade. I've worked in corporate for years and years and years, and then I just spent a year and a half in personal injury law. Point being, he mentioned all of these licenses that they're going to take from him. Now, the case is Wilson versus Hawaii, and it's a Second Amendment case, but it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And in Wilson versus Hawaii, the Supreme Court finally acknowledged Marbury versus Madison. Now, if you're not familiar with Marbury versus Madison, it states simply, any law which is anathema to the Constitution is immediately void and no one may enforce it. Now, I'm thinking Wilson versus Hawaii can be applied to a lot of what you're doing. Bob and Don, take it away. Where does Brandon go from here?
I wanted to add something, Steve. Can I quickly?
Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
fuck off. Yeah, no, please.
So this was intense. So I go to the court and I said, well, I don't have any income in that aspect. So I filed, indigent, didn't nothing.
Yeah.
But now I'm getting all of this. I'm getting this order that's coming through, right? And they give me a fee waiver because I have no income. No, I'm serious. This happened multiple times. I'm like,
not
the
kidding.
probate administrator no, you don't have any income. We got to.
Did they put that on paper?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, how's it going?
My
No,
wife.
I'm
Brent-
all fired up.
Yeah, she's fired up. You guys gotta-
Brendan's wife's a sweetheart. I've talked to her a couple of times
Yeah.
when I've been talking
But-
to him. So, Brendan, my point is this: take that document where they waive those fees, take that and get it notarized because that's evidence.
Right.
Okay, I'm telling you right now, from a paralegal's perspective, that's evidence.
I used to think at the end of the day, well, it's not. And I talked to my wife about it. I'm like, maybe it's not the judge's fault. Maybe
Yes,
it's the friend of the court
No,
it's
giving the wrong information. So this whole channel of information, I think, obviously, they're all in on it at the end of the day because it's profit, right? Like Bob said, it's all transferred to state revenue. And it's crazy to me.
as far as the friend of the court people go, I'm going to quote Apocalypse Now on them. You're an errand boy sent by grocers to collect a bill.
Never
Yeah.
get out of the boat.
Yeah.
Never get out of the boat, man. I want to
Out of the boat.
Yeah.
mangoes, man. Don appears to have dropped off on us.
Yeah, it happens.
But everything when you go in here, it's like, okay, you're putting this order. Now I'm almost paying $2,000 a month. Actually, my son is downstairs. I have him this weekend and this week too.
Good.
12 minutes away. And again, Bob and I talked about it. It's like, okay, we don't want to blame the exes. We don't want to do that. I think though, in a way, and I want to throw this out there, it's like, if you're in Pontiac and you go into a party store and you're in the car and this guy's going to go in there and rob it or kill someone, you know about it. So my ex knows about her she's getting this money illegally. And I've told her this multiple times.
Uh-huh.
She has to be held accountable too. But I don't want to go there. It's just,
No. Listen, man.
you know what I mean?
You have to understand. Once the divorce process starts, you need to look at that soon-to-be ex-wife or ex-wife as your fucking enemy.
Yeah.
And they need to be treated with all of the rights and privileges that title fucking conveys.
Yeah.
She would have no problem with you rotting in jail.
Yes, thank you.
Once we get this whole thing reversed, you need to get your money out of her.
Well, I want to sue her because I think that she knew about what's going on. Obviously, I've sent her multiple. And by the way, guys, I want to say this: for the past 2 years, and I've shared this with Steve, I've been paying under duress, giving these specific laws to the friend of the court, and the director goes, "I'm not going to answer any more of your questions with this. If you want to change this, you need to put petitions in with the court." And I'm going, why? You started it. End it. You started it in your administrative office.
The director is attempting to assert authority that individual does not have.
Right.
And to pass the buck, run you around in circles, because the more we run around in circles, the more we get worn out and the sooner we die. They don't care who dies. They don't care who lives. They don't care what happens to our children. By the way, Don had a power outage, so
okay.
If you want to let him back in, he's available. So,
all he has to do is click that link.
Yeah.
There he is. Hey, Don.
Thunderstorm and power outage, perfect timing.
You know, I want to add this just quickly. Steve, Pop, thank you so much, honestly, for having me on. This is you guys gave me a sense of hope. No, I'm serious. You guys gave me a sense of hope. And then Bob, I talked to Bob, and I was in tears last night because I'm sitting here going, I didn't know who to go to, guys. I don't know where to turn.
This is literally why we exist, dude. So
I sent Steve a link to a guy who argued in front of the Michigan Supreme Court about VA disability. Yeah. And they cannot fucking touch it. So the judge that fucking you over knows that. And he's still doing, and $2,000 a month. I mean, how much money do you think what is that based off of? That's an arbitrary number. You can't fucking do that.
And I told the court, I said, if you're taking this amount of money away from me, I still have to provide transportation, a home, food, clothing, insurance. I got to make sure my kids.
But then
how can this? Well, that's just the law, Mr. Sherrill. That's the way it goes.
For perspective, simply for perspective, the corporate law firm I worked for out in Los Angeles was called Dreyer. And the other side of the house was Hollywood Entertainment, to the point where Alan Alda would come in with coffee that he would bring for his attorney. Okay. That kind of Hollywood clout. We had a producer. This guy made bank. His ex-wife brought this weapon that we're discussing here today to bear on him. And this guy was paying, I shit you not, $170,000 a month in child support and alimony.
Yep, that's why.
So it's not just us. They hammer the Robin Williams is another example. Pop covered that one extensively.
Yep.
Well,
I think comment real quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Please, Don.
Yeah, what a lot of these cases, you got veterans who are disabled. Many of us know people that they have such severe PTSD from combat. I'm lucky that I didn't. That they can barely function, and so then when they go after the veteran benefits, the socialist workers will say, "What about the children?" Well,
Bolsheviks.
If you let, in most cases, dad, not always dad, but if you let dad keep his compensation, then he can take care of the children when they're with him. And then if you let mom, the able-bodied person, go make her money, then she can take care of the children. If you take the children away and you take all the money the veteran has to survive, then he or she ends up living in a car, living in a box, or living underneath a bridge. And then eventually, due to all that, plus parental alienation, they blow their brains out. Yep. And so then you can ask, what about the children? Now the children no longer have two parents.
Yeah.
And the VA does not consider suicide or homeless death to be a service-connected death. So the children and the ex end up on welfare, which defeats the whole purpose, again, costing the federal government buckets of money. So I I look at this. I've seen this. I've been dealing with the confusion about this for many, many years. And something I'd like to be, helpful with is that it is a waste of time to argue any of this stuff in the state court because they're never going to admit 35 years of predatory corruption. And lawyers aren't going to help us because the minute the state is required to obey the law, all their gravy train paychecks are going to go away. So they really just want to do what they want to do.
Is this the time to bring up your document, Bob? A brief history of the loophole?
Okay. Almost. Very close.
Okay. Yep.
So when we're talking about suing a judge in a court, suing a judge for money, the federal case is about whether the judge is bound, as the Supremacy Clause says, whether the judge is bound by the Veterans Judicial Review Act, thereby required to obey the law that says jurisdiction on veteran benefits belongs to the VA and the federal courts, not the state court. And we want that question to be answered correctly, because if they are bound by the Veterans Judicial Review Act, they're bound by federal preemption. They can't possibly touch the VA benefits. That means they have no possibility of jurisdiction. And that means they have no immunity. That was the main thing I was trying to get to. You can sue a judge for money when you can prove that he has no possibility of jurisdiction on the rights specifically to the law they have violated. In this case, the law that's there to protect us as beneficiaries. It's not there to protect the former spouse. The Title 38 is there to protect the veteran and current actual dependents of the veteran, which is current spouse and children. But that protection goes through the veteran. It doesn't go to them separately unless the VA says so in an apportionment decision. But it doesn't matter whether you have an apportionment decision or not. No state court can order the VA to pay alimony or child support. No state court can issue an order taking veteran benefits away from the beneficiary. Everything they're doing is unconstitutional, and they can be sued. The judges can be sued for money. So even if we just get the answer, yes, they have to obey the law that says they can't touch it, that's one good step. The second question, are they personally liable and can we sue them for money? Well, that should be a yes answer too. Again, we just have to get through the court system. Now, we've all been fighting this for years and years and years out of our lives, and we've all lost time with our family. We've lost money to lawyers. We've lost money to the cost of whether you're homeless or not, you're losing money. And the fact is that this is incredibly painful, because when it comes back to it, all we really want to do is eat, sleep, and play with our kids. And it gets really hard to do that when you got nothing to work with. So typically, from the time that they crush the possibility of us fighting back, they take away the resources, they ruin our situation, and they poison the kids against us. The relationship, they poison the relationship, they cause so much damage. Very many veterans cannot recover from that. And as a general rule, I like to make sure you understand, if you didn't already have PTSD when you walk into the divorce court, you're damn skippy going to have it when you walk out. It's called legal abuse syndrome. And children, in the long run, children are the victims of this. I'd like
There's another word for what you're talking about. That word is barratry, B-A-R-R-A-T-R-Y. That is using the law as a form of administrative violence deliberately with intent.
Correct.
And what you guys are all mentioning about the removal of the kids is what I refer to as the wound that never heals.
Yes.
Yep. Virtually all of the people who watch, not all of them, but most of the people who watch this show are dealing with that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And it's not just veterans.
No,
they use this scam on everybody. All those magistrates, all those family court pissants They make all of these administrative law judges that work for the
very deliberate and calculated.
And this is why this is a systematic embezzlement thing. This is not like a little thing they just invented last year. This is something that's been going on for years. It became
40 years.
Times
It's been
worse.
going on 40 years now.
Yep.
Another
10 times worse in the year 2000, and then it became 10 times worse in the year 2020. It's not a thing.
Another thing too, Bob, and I want to share too, is that when you get your friend of the court paperwork or however it goes, there's going to be an obligor and a payee, and then it's going to be a non-custodial and a custodial parent. So you can be great in a hearing, a family court hearing, or in front of the judge, but if you have that title of a non-custodial parent, in the eyes of the state, you have abandoned your kids.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's true, 100%. And that's the way the state looks at it. You're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
You've abandoned your kids, and you could be in their lives like I am with my 2 kids. Very relevant, 12 minutes away, same county, everything.
Yeah.
But in the eyes of the state, you've abandoned your kids.
Yeah.
And that's tough. That's tough to swallow, guys.
Yeah.
I was living on Pop's couch, basically. Well, I was literally sleeping on a military cot in a spare room in Pop's house. My daughter we were in Detroit. My daughter was in San Angelo, Texas, 1,900 miles away. She was 7 years old, I think she was. Sent me a picture of her Halloween pumpkin. It was this sad little tiny pumpkin. I went out. I bought $100 pumpkin, like the size of a house, essentially, threw it in my truck and drove all the way down there just to give her a damn pumpkin. That's the kind of thing. I'm not exceptional for doing that. I've seen a lot of stories like this, but I happen to have one of my own. And that meant the whole world to her.
Right.
We do those things, and these courts sabotage us anyway. They don't even have the decency to say, okay, this guy drove 2,000 miles to bring his daughter a pumpkin for Halloween. That's respectable.
Yeah.
I drove 571 miles.
Yeah.
One way.
I remember you saying that, Bob.
For 5.5 goddamn years. From Utica to New York, all the way to Detroit.
Yep.
And I was usually on a pass, or I would take 1 day of leave, which was usually
401 through Canada. Yeah.
I did go through Canada a few times. Yeah. It only saved an hour, but and they don't give a shit about that stuff.
No.
Yeah. I remember Pop doing that. I would talk to him while he was driving sometimes. And he wouldn't miss it for the whole fucking world. There was nothing he would not do for his daughters.
Right.
Nothing. And he gave up so much shit just for his daughters, and the courts sabotaged him anyway.
Another tactic too is that I want to, and Bob, I know we talked about it. I have 50-50 joint legal physical custody of my kids through my divorce decree, and that's the way it was, week on, week off. It states it in the decree. But these courts will force you financially out of their lives.
Yes.
Where you cannot afford them. You have to go, I can't do this. They go, well, I'm sorry, you can't do this. I said, well, what am I supposed to do? So that's another tactic they use, financially forcing you out. And that's what happened to me.
All of this is to make their paychecks better. It is a for-profit operation based on 42 U.S. Code Section 659, what we call Title 4D, where we're talking about veteran benefits. It says that veteran benefits are not subject to process. It's way down at the bottom, but it says veteran benefits are not subject to process, except for benefits received in lieu of military retired pay, which means when a veteran is a retiree and they have retired pay and they have to give up some retired pay to get veteran benefits, then theoretically they could be touched. But again, it doesn't matter what this statute says. Title 38 makes veteran benefits exempt from this statute and from the child welfare system that this statute is in. If you look back, since you're on legal information, you can actually look back to section 658A, which is the complicated commission structure. Just hit the previous button. I'd reach up and do it, but I don't have the clicker.
There you go.
So this is what's
I have the clicker.
incentive payments to states. This is financial motivation for them to commit fraud. So they look at veteran benefits. They say, oh, cash cow. They want to be able to get it. When they look at retired pay, they say, ooh, double cash cow. Because they say if a veteran is a retiree, then they can get everything. You may have mentioned, or you may be familiar with Ray Foster up in your neighborhood.
Ray's a good buddy of mine. Yeah. Yep.
Ray is amazing. And after several rounds with the state Supreme Court, they finally got a judgment where the state Supreme Court said they can't touch combat-related special compensation. And this was something that went through a lot of difficulty. And his ex-wife was ordered to repay him $72,000 or something like that.
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
Which, of course, probably couldn't, because they have spent together, combined and separately, close to $500,000 on lawyers' fees. The lawyers clean up. And that also includes that doesn't count the work that was donated for free by Carson, or the work that or the money that was raised by donations to fight both sides of that case for years. So this has cost them everything they've ever owned, and probably everything their kids have ever owned. And it has done so much horrible damage to their emotional and physical state. Like I said, everybody likes to fight with the ex. We blame it on the ex. We've been through it. And I did that for a while too. But I want to get back to the coolest part about this law. When Congress said nobody can touch veteran benefits, they're exempt from everything. The purpose of that decision was to protect our whole family, us and them, from corruption and profiteering. The idea was to stop that crap. And
it has failed miserably.
Well, they did their job. What we have to do is get to the Supreme Court and make them do their job. Answer the damn question. If, for example, they say no, state judges are not bound by or required to obey the Constitution and laws of the United States, then they basically wash away the Constitution. We got nothing. Country dissolved. They don't even have a job. So if they say no, they're out of a job.
Right.
If they say, why, yes, the state judge is required to obey, and they can get in trouble when they break the law that says they could not possibly touch veteran benefits, that's the key. That's where we're going. That's why we've been fighting. All of these years, I've been watching and listening and fighting and praying and cussing and going through all this shit myself. But the thing that I brought to this table that's different is a different direction of bringing that violence to the court, through the court, going to the right court, hammering them where it needs to go. For example, your question about can they garnish your bank account empty? That goes to the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit on a question against the VA. Is VA policy to allow garnishment of veteran benefits under Section 659 the exact opposite of the statutory law controlling jurisdiction on veteran benefits, making it impossible for the state to have the ability to write that order? And it comes back to the Secretary of the VA has to answer that question. If I'm right, Don can correct me on this, but as I understand, this current Secretary Collins is in fact a lawyer himself.
He's a lawyer. He's a former congressman. He's a chaplain in the Air Force Reserve, I believe, former Navy
I have
chaplain.
respect for chaplains.
So he's pretty well rounded. I think the right person for this job. I hope
Reaching the right person is going to help us. yelling at the state judges is not going to get us anywhere. Taking them to federal court and getting their underwear yanked over their head will certainly help.
I would love to see that.
But any one of these,
we definitely want to continue this conversation
And first of all, I'm gonna
learn how to
add-
do this.
Well, first of all, Bob, I'm going to add this portion into our administrative violence judge and competition.
Yep.
excellent.
Because, you know, I mean, I didn't even know about this. Like the way I was looking at it, you
Same.
need about 12 to 15 guys per county willing to do this.
Yeah.
All right. You do a FOIA request for anyone who contributed, you know, the names of people who contributed to the judge's campaign. Then you have another guy do a FOIA request for all of the cases, all the case numbers that judge has touched. And then you do a find and replace to see if anyone that donated money got a favorable ruling in his court. That is a big no.
Oh, yeah.
And then while you're at it, since you're going to contact all of these people, you know, you get just one of these 15 guys is a notary. Maybe one of them is an attorney. And you literally have the people who sat in front of that judge file a formal complaint against that judge with the state. Now, granted, they're probably going to sweep most of it under the rug. And usually a judge will get anywhere up to 5 to a dozen complaints a year. The whole dynamic changes if that turns into 100, 200 or more complaints every fucking year against that judge. Because when that judge goes up for re-election, you literally save all of those complaints, give them to the other judge who's running against them, and say, here you go, use this ammo to sink that guy. And just remember, we did it to him, we could fucking do it to you.
Yeah, that's another tough thing too, because the judge that, you know, put this order on me was unopposed. It's like fucking Mayberry here.
Yeah, I know.
You know, that's a tough thing too. So it's like,
yeah, I own property up there, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So when I, you know, wanted to make a complaint, I asked the director, I said, who does the complaint go to? Well, it goes to the judge. Like, okay, well, he's the guy that's fucking putting the hammer down.
You can
That's
actually
clearly a conflict of interest.
file the complaint with the state. You can jump right over him.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I'm
to
sitting
be
here
able
as a
to speak-
paralegal telling you that judge is, he must recuse on that particular matter. It is clearly a conflict of interest. Therefore, your next level is definitely the state.
Now, Brandon, if it was me in your shoes, I would file that complaint with the state, and then I would give a copy, and I would hand deliver to the judge himself.
Yeah.
Okay. Right on. No, I get
Or
it.
have it served on him so he can't claim that you threatened him.
Right.
Yeah.
Because a judge like that will definitely do something like that. If you walk up to him and stick papers in his chest, I guarantee you he will attempt to say that you threatened him in some manner.
Yeah. Yeah. Try to stay.
Or worse,
you know.
assaulted
Or worse,
him by
yeah.
handing him the paper.
Right,
Right.
exactly. So use a service if you're going to do something like that.
It's
Hey, can I bring something up here regarding
Please do.
parental alienation?
Please do.
Because I think most of us here, and probably many, it's huge in the veteran community.
Yeah.
There's a young lady online named Maddie Wellborn. She runs the Anti-Alienation Project. I don't know her personally, but she's a friend of a friend, and she puts out some really good videos. I've been following her for probably the last year and a half. She is in her early 30s. She was alienated from her dad for 20 years.
wow.
And she finally discovered it.
This
Now
sounds
she's going around
familiar.
college campuses and talking to people and informing them about this thing called parental alienation. And I would advise anybody to go take a look at that. Yeah,
There you
there
go.
she is right there.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she's got some, she puts out videos almost every day, and she's just doing such a tremendous job.
Watch Grunt Speak Live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to join Pop for Supporters Sundays, go to redonkulas.com/donate and make a monthly pledge. A link is in the Meat Gazer box.